He tossed my resume back onto the table like it was trash. You're smart on paper, he said, but you don't have real leadership experience. Best you can hope for here is a secretary role. He didn't see the classified call sign buried on the last page. This veteran story begins in a glass-walled conference room on the 23rd floor of Helios Dynamics, one of those tech companies where the egos are bigger than the skyscrapers they occupy. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city buzzed with life. Inside, under cold LED lights, a CEO was about to learn that leadership doesn't always come with a corner office. Her name was Emily Carter, 34 years old, dark hair pulled into a simple bun, black blazer, white shirt, no flashy jewelry. On the surface, she looked like any other mid-level applicant, someone gunning for a project manager role with decent credentials and forgettable experience. Her resume was intentionally plain. No military section, no decorations, just logistics consultant, operational risk analyst, and team coordinator on high-pressure projects. Across from her sat Gavin Rhodes, CEO of Helios. Early 40s, expensive watch, perfect haircut, and the practiced arrogance of a man who believed his MBA made him an expert on leadership. Next to him, HR Director Melissa Chun tapped notes into her laptop, eyes careful and neutral. Gavin skimmed Emily's resume for all of 30 seconds before his jaw tightened. He dropped the papers flat on the table, the sound sharp in the silent room. "All right, Emily," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "Let's not waste each other's time." Emily folded her hands calmly in her lap. "That's exactly what I'd like to avoid." Gavin smirked. "Your resume is impressive academically. Great GPA. Good schools. A lot of theory." He tapped the paper with one finger. "But this role isn't for someone who's only good in classrooms. This is a senior operations manager position. I need someone who's led real teams under real pressure. Not whatever this is." He made a dismissive gesture toward her resume. Melissa shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "With respect," Emily said, her voice steady, "I've led teams in extremely high-pressure environments. The titles may not reflect." Gavin cut her off with a laugh. "Logistics consultant, operations advisor, coordinated cross-functional teams in dynamic conditions." He read the lines mockingly. "You sound like every other candidate who's read a leadership book and thinks managing a college group project qualifies them for the real world." He leaned forward, eyes cold. "Let me be blunt. You don't look like someone who's been in charge when everything was on fire. You look like a very capable assistant. Smart, organized, good at following orders, but not the one giving them when it matters." The words hung in the air like a slap. Melissa's fingers froze above her keyboard. Emily's jaw flexed for just a fraction of a second. Then she exhaled slowly, controlled. "I appreciate your honesty," she said quietly. "But with respect, you're drawing conclusions from a story you haven't heard yet." Gavin chuckled. "I've seen hundreds of resumes, Miss Carter. I'm very good at reading between the lines." "You're very good at reading paper," she replied. "That's not the same thing as reading people." Melissa's eyes flicked up. That landed. Gavin's smile faded. "You know what? You're confident. I'll give you that. But confidence without substance is just noise." He nudged the resume. "Tell me about the biggest project you've ever led. Real stakes. Real consequences. Impress me." Emily's gaze drifted to the window for a moment, looking at the city skyline. Her breathing slowed. 3 years ago," she said, "I led a team of 12 in a time-critical operation. Multi-party coordination. Live intel feed. Hostile variables." Gavin raised an eyebrow. "Hostile variables?" "Yes. There were innocent lives at risk. We had a fixed window for success. Failure meant those people didn't go home." Gavin smirked. "And what was this? Some kind of crisis PR campaign? A last-minute product launch?" Emily held his gaze. "It was a hostage rescue. 2 Americans and 1 local national. Eastern Afghanistan. Night op. No margin for error." Silence filled the room. Melissa's hands went still. Gavin blinked. Then he laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "Come on." He glanced at Melissa. "Is this a joke? We're interviewing people who think they're action heroes now." Emily didn't flinch. "You asked for the biggest project I've led. I'm answering your question." "So what?" Gavin scoffed. "You were a communications analyst? A logistics coordinator on some base?" "I was the team leader." He stared at her. Leader of what team exactly? Her answer was quiet, calm, and devastating. A special operations element, tasked to extract high-value hostages from a contested village in Kunar province. Melissa's eyes widened. Gavin's jaw tightened. Special ops, he repeated, dripping skepticism. You expect me to believe that? You don't exactly fit the profile. There are things you won't find on Google, Emily said. And there are roles that don't show up on LinkedIn. That doesn't make them less real. Gavin laughed louder now, leaning back in his chair. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Fantasy leadership. Storytelling. Emily's eyes hardened slightly. There were 12 of us, she said. We fast-broke from an MH-47 just before dawn. Limited air support due to cloud cover. Intel said the hostages were in a compound on the east side of the village. They'd been moved an hour earlier. Melissa swallowed. Despite himself, Gavin went still. We took contact from 3 sides within 4 minutes of landing. Emily continued. Automatic fire. Heavy machine guns from an elevated position. Lost our comms relay on the first burst. One of my guys took shrapnel to the leg. I had to decide, fall back and abort, or push deeper with no guarantee the hostages were even alive. The conference room was so quiet they could hear the AC humming. So what did you do? Melissa whispered. I pushed, because we weren't getting a second chance. I split the team, 4 to suppress the rooftop shooters, rest with me along the west alley. We breached 4 structures, cleared 23 rooms, found the hostages zip-tied in a basement while our exfil window was closing. She leaned forward slightly. We carried them out under fire. One couldn't walk. I put him over my shoulder. We took a round through the helicopter skin on the way out. She sat back. My team all made it home. So did the hostages. Her voice returned to its earlier quiet tone. That is the biggest project I've managed. Tight timeline. High-risk stakeholders. Cross-functional coordination under fire. You asked for real leadership. That's what it looks like when it isn't in a PowerPoint. Gavin stared, something unsettled flickering behind his skepticism. The details. The specificity. The way she spoke like someone who had actually been there. But ego is stubborn. So let me get this straight, he said, picking up her resume again. You were allegedly leading special ops rescue missions, and now you're applying to manage operations at a tech company. He snorted. That's quite a downgrade. Some things matter more than titles, Emily said. I left on my terms. I'm looking for a different challenge. Or, Gavin countered, you've embellished some consulting roles into something dramatic because you think it'll impress me. He flipped through the pages. Coordinated multi-team operations in denied environments. Oversaw asset recovery under hostile conditions. This sounds like someone trying too hard to sound tactical. He looked up. You could have just said you managed a difficult client. Emily glanced at Melissa, then back at Gavin. You want proof, she said quietly. Gavin smirked. That would be nice. She nodded toward the resume in his hands. Then keep reading. He scoffed, but turned the page. Page 2. Page 3. Sanitized job descriptions, references from federal agencies, with no detailed contact info. Last page, Emily said. Gavin flipped to the back. A single sheet. Different paper. Heavier stock. The heading in stark black letters. United States Department of Defense. Office of the Secretary. Gavin's posture changed. His eyes scanned the page. To whom it may concern, he read aloud, voice slowing. This letter serves as official confirmation that Ms. Emily R. Carter has completed multiple deployments in service of the United States as part of a special operations unit. Her leadership under fire, strategic judgment in fluid combat environments, and proven capacity to protect American lives under extreme pressure place her in the top 1% of operational leaders evaluated by this office. He stopped. The color drained from his face. Melissa leaned in to see. Printed near the bottom, above a block of redacted text. Call sign, Valkyrie, classified. No one breathed. Gavin's lips moved, reading the line again silently. Valkyrie, he remembered. A story years ago. A whispered, half-redacted article about a female operator attached to a joint task force, credited unofficially with saving an entire platoon. No name given. Only a call sign. Valkyrie. He looked at the signature block at the bottom. Under Secretary of Defense. Blue ink. Heavy strokes. Official seal watermark visible when the light hit it. The CEO who had mocked her resume sat there, confronted with a letter from the Pentagon. Melissa whispered, "Oh my God." Emily spoke into the silence. "You wanted real leadership," she said softly. "Here are the parts of my record they're willing to admit exist. There's more you won't find in any file you're cleared to see." Gavin swallowed hard. His arrogance had nowhere to hide. "I didn't realize." "No," Emily said. "You didn't ask. You saw what you expected to see. A woman with a plain resume who couldn't possibly have led anything that mattered." She stood slowly. "I came here because I respected what this company was building. I thought you'd want someone who knows how to lead when the stakes are real." She picked up her bag. "But you don't want a leader. You want someone who looks like your version of one." Gavin finally found his voice. "Wait, please. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake." Emily paused. "Miss Carter," Melissa said quickly, standing. "Please sit. We'd like to continue this conversation properly." Gavin stood too, face red. "You're right. Everything you said. I was arrogant. I judged you before I knew anything. I'm sorry." Emily looked at him for a long moment. "Do you know what I learned leading teams downrange?" she asked. "That the loudest person in the room is rarely the most capable. That real leaders don't need to announce themselves. And that the people you underestimate are often the ones who'll save your life." She set her bag down. "Set back down. I'll give you one more chance," she said. "Not because you deserve it, but because the people working under you deserve better leadership than what you just demonstrated." Gavin sat, humbled in a way he'd probably never experienced. "Thank you," he said quietly. Emily Carter was hired as Chief Operating Officer of Helios Dynamics 3 days later, 2 levels above the position she'd originally applied for. Within 6 months, she had restructured their entire operations division, implemented veteran hiring initiatives, and doubled their efficiency metrics. Gavin Rhodes learned to listen before speaking. He kept the Pentagon letter framed in his office as a reminder that leadership comes in forms he'd never expect. And Melissa Chun made sure that every resume that crossed her desk was read, really read, before any judgment was passed. This veteran story reminds us that the strongest leaders don't always look like what we expect. They don't boast. They don't demand respect. They simply do the work, carry the weight, and lead when it matters most. Never judge by appearances. Never dismiss someone because they don't fit your narrow definition of capable. The person sitting across from you might have led missions you'll never be cleared to know about. Subscribe to Hidden Veteran Stories for more. Honor those who served in silence.